Howdy y'all. Welcome back to my channel. My name is A.R. Cavley, and I'm going to do another review, RPG review. This time of the Hostile solo game by Zozer Games. It's one of the latest releases for the Hostile game system, which I am a very big fan of. As you can tell, let me pull out my cred here. Oh, one of those beautiful books right there. All those. That's my hostile love. My hostile love. And we got one of those little universal GM screens with all the hostile charts and stuff in there. That's a lot of book. It's a lot of books. A lot of setting info. And we're going to go through the book step by step, go through the sections of the hardware, or the hard copy, the hardcover, and I will kind of explain what I think of it so far. Here we have the hardcover version of Hostile Solo by Zozer Games. You can purchase this through Lulu. You won't find it on DriveThruRPG. They publish their physical copies through Lulu. However, if you publish it through, or if you buy it from Lulu, you can contact Zozer Games, and they will send you a complimentary PDF of the game. This is like all of the Hostile setting games so far. Uses a Cepheus engine, the 2-6 original sci-fi kind of rules. Pretty good quality, solid hardback. I don't really know enough about the technical side of books and stuff to say much more than it seems pretty sturdy and I like it. Those who are familiar with the rest of the Hostile setting will know that it's all of the product are full of little like corporate type typeface and stationary reports and things like that. And this solo carries on that fine tradition. Has some excellent artwork inside, as usual. This is written, importantly, this is written so that you don't need any of this other stuff, okay? It has all of the rules, a streamlined version of the rules built in. And this streamlined setting is a good shorthand, I guess. I think there's a fancier word I was looking for. But a very concise idea that explains the theme and the big names. But it still does have a lot of information. It has your maps, your star maps. And they have a very cool, using these sort of corporate advertisement pages, it does an excellent job of showing you the setting. Doesn't give a lot of the in-depth details, of course. You know, doesn't talk a lot about the corporate wars and some of the other history, but it runs down who the players are and gives you, kind of explains the theme. It's kind of a retro tech sci-fi horror game, and it gives a lot of information to kind of get the setting, get the theme in your head, with just a few of these like corporate pictures. It's really a good way to do it, because it's, you know, it's great to just look at too if you know all the stuff, and just kind of as a refresher. This is of course a solo version of Hostile, and it talks about how to solo, of course. One of the things that separates Hostile solo from a lot of solo games, and I've played several because, well, I solo roleplay a lot, is that it's based on a team. You actually control a team of characters. A lot of popular solo RPGs, especially if they're minimalist RPGs, you have a main character, and if you have assistants or sidekicks or whatever, they're sort of played narratively, and that's about it. You can, of course, develop their personality and everything else, but mechanically, they don't have much effect. They may give you like a +1 or something like that, but they're not their own character in the sense that the crew that you build to play one of these campaigns is a crew of multiple people. And this book comes equipped with information to run 6 types of hostile campaigns: shipping, exploring, colony survival, marine missions, asteroid mining, and corporate troubleshooting. Okay. Now, Zozer, Paul Elliott, has put out other solo games, and this kind of follows a lot of the same ideas. He's put out one that's for Traveler, and along the same lines, but the theme is a little different. It's more standard Traveler than Hostile. But it gives you the outline, how to start your initial mission, how to build plots, and an optional rule for a looming crisis, which is basically, it acts like a timer for something bad to happen. And here's the, it starts talking about the different type of crews. Marion Squad, it gives you a short, succinct idea of what each type of team will be doing and the type of characters that you'd be working with. I went ahead and I made a resource exploration crew. I don't know that I will film or do a playthrough or anything on it. I've got a lot of stuff on my plate right now, and I have another solo game I need to finish up first. So the creating characters, if you're familiar with Cepheus Engine or Traveler, a lot of this will be familiar. It's a simple task resolution of 2d6 plus skill level plus attribute bonus, if any. This is very streamlined, though, in the sense that instead of doing the Traveler-esque mini game to create a character as you would in the regular Traveler, or even the regular solo, or not solo, but even the regular Hostile rule book, right? You would instead, you kind of select the career, and you have to select like everybody. You have to pick out your crew so that your crews match the team, because these are professional teams, right? They're not just a ragtag group of scum and villainy. They may be scum and they may be villains, but they're there because they have a particular set of skills. And that's talked about before in the teams. But you select a crew for each, or you select a career for each person, and you just use a point allotment. There is a little bit of random rolling if you want, but most of it's picked. You have 7 points. You select one of them has to be the skill based on your career: android, agent, executive, colonist, marine, marshal, physician, ranger, rogue, roughneck, scientist, spacer, survey scout, or technician. And then you divvy up the other skills. You still have the same characteristics as you are everywhere else you are making characters for Cepheus Engine or Cepheus Engine. And since you're running a team and working on the narrative, you focus more on kind of building the team like it would be, without necessarily trying to worry too much. Not that I ever really do, but not worrying too much that it's going to be unbalanced somehow. This is a space horror game. So instead, you don't have to argue about who wants to be the captain or the chief executive. You're the player. You control the whole crew. So you select who does what. And there's some randomness in like your psyche evaluation that you can use for each of the crew members. I did end up using another supplement, some other product to build it out because I had 8 crew and actually ended up rolling some of the same. So if I roll duplicates, then I just refer to another chart. And there's a ton of them out there. And you obviously don't have to do that. You can pick something else. You don't even have to use it, but it is kind of it's kind of cool. And then here we see the example team. It does have a lot of the hardware, the general kit, and of course, again, you're talking about supplying like a corporate or a government team. So it's not so much about what can the characters afford. It's what would they reasonably have, and can they take care of it? Would they have it? Would the crew of a space liner who carries around widgets back and forth have assault rifles on their ship? Probably not. But that's part of what you do. A lot of the stuff is abstracted wages. Here's a character sheets. Now, Hostile Solo uses the same kind of resolution mechanic. Like I said, 2-6 plus your skill plus your attribute or any other DMs, dice modifiers. But it can break down into doing a task resolution or a scene resolution. And that's a lot of what, without going into too much detail, that's basically the idea that Hostile uses, is that you come up with a plan and then you resolve the scene. Now the plan, you don't come up with all the details to start with. It's just a basic outline of a plan, and you as a player, you come up with the idea, of course being guided by the personalities of the crew. If they're cautious, then they would more likely go for a cautious type plan. If they are reckless, then they might try things that are more dangerous or risky. And what you do as a player, and of course, honestly, and if you cheat, you're only cheating yourself. You decide on the difficulty of the plan, honestly assess it. Is it shaky, solid, or foolproof? And then, is it safe or dangerous? And then making those decisions will set your difficulty level and the consequence of a failure. Once you have the result, then you go back and you write it in your adventure journal. Okay, you don't really have to write it in the adventure journal if you have a good memory, but when you're learning when you're meeting new contacts and working on a history of the group, it's good to write that stuff down just so you can keep it in line. But that's how it works. Instead of doing everything being a step by step by step, come up with a plan. You roll to see if it works or not. And the dice mods that you add can be, if you have certain members that have skills that might help with that, you think it's reasonable. And if they pass a test, then they can add a bonus to the scene resolution. It fails, it works, whatever, it fails really bad. Then you go back and describe how it happened. Because solo role-playing is basically you coming up with a story. It's you talking to yourself for a couple of hours and rolling dice and doing mean things to these little space people in your mind. All right? And it does have what other games call oracles, and figuring out ways to come up with resolutions. It has a lot of good advice on that. There's a list of hazards that you might come across and the damage effects. It has a streamlined version of combat from the hostile rules. Now you can easily use the other rules, right? A lot of this game was designed to be playable by people who don't have, like I said, all the other books. But you could easily do that. You could use the miniatures. You could come up with how things work, how things go. Some more discussion about how to build a plot, random encounters, and establishing context, because a lot of that's, it's all context, man. Now, another thing that it builds in here is that not every scene is necessarily a matter of some kind of adventure or activity that's going on, but character interactions are an important part of the scenes that this plays. Okay. Here's a relationship log that you can start building between two characters, and instead of, especially when nothing else is going on, this is a good place to throw in some drama. If there's nothing going on your crew, then or in the scenario at that point, then you can just throw a couple of crewmen together and see if they fight. See if they fight or start kissing, or one throws the other out the airlock, or whatever. Kind of like throwing the red ant and the black ant in the jar and shaking it up. And there's a good oracle for the relationship. Some reactions. Okay. Now here it has, Hostile Solo has inspiration tables, like most solo games do that come with oracles. They've got tables for theme and events and stuff. This one is broken down based on where you're at, which is pretty good. Because some places have just like a general oracle, and then it gives you kind of this vague idea, and you're left to figure out what that means in context. But this helps you by narrowing down where you're at. Ship, installation, surface. If you're talking about personnel, and it does have its own action and theme. So if it is something vague enough, maybe something that doesn't rely on the situation or the location, then you use just a regular inspiration. And it uses the D66 tables, so it's a little less than the D100 table, but it's still a good number. Still a good number of options. It talks about how to work with the storylines and the looming crisis, drama. All right, so these are, I'm not going to go through all the tables that it's using or anything like that, but it gives you good ideas as to what the heck your characters might run into, because this is a sci-fi horror game, like Aliens, like Event Horizon. Okay. The mission report, that's what they call the logbook, where you write your stories down. Give some good information on space flight, the procedures, how things work, what a crew or travelers will find when they're actually working on those things. Here's a way to figure out. One thing that I've always liked about Hostile is that it tends towards hard sci-fi, so they they do keep track of burns, which can be very important if you're having some kind of other trouble and you only have so many burns. You may have to make a decision, a tough decision, about where you're going to spend those burns. A lot of good information about how long it, how far things are apart, how long it takes to travel, and some good why hyperspace was interrupted. Okay, some ideas of the common ship types in the hostile universe, some ship names. Now here's something that is added that is actually pretty cool. This randomized interior. It's basically a system, instead of using, drawing everything out on a hex map uses these nodes and the connecting hallway, and then you come up and decide, figure out what each one of those nodes are. Okay, and it helps you. It has a table so you can apply what each of those things. Same thing it has with starships. And you just plug in, there's your avionics, your bridge, airlock, fresher, cargo, drive section. And those are just, they're obviously not to scale using there, but it is a pretty cool, I thought it was a pretty good way to make a shorthand for maps. What do you think? And I did actually, now of course, if you have the other stuff, other resources in the hostile line, of course you can just use what you have. You don't have to do that. This Castle Bravo is a survey vessel, and these match up pretty close to the dots that you'll find in the book. So here, if you have this, if you have the Explorers book, then you have the maps as well, which is pretty cool right there. Okay, and then this part of the book breaks down, and I'm not going to go through everything, but it breaks down the different types of campaign. Like the first one's shipping. It tells you about the career types, the type of location. It gives you a recommended starting vehicle. Okay, and we see there's the Tharsis Argosy, and that does match the map too in the relevant book. What's cool is one thing about playing solo is sometimes you can really get lost. You feel like I don't know what to do next. I don't know what this random roll means. What would they be doing? I don't know. And so it's always good to have some kind of structure in a solo game, even if it's just a minimal guide. Sometimes it can be helpful if needed. And this includes for each of the campaigns, it gives a checklist for what you're doing, each one of those things, and then it gives you a random starting mission. You can pick your own, but it's a way of figuring out those things, because part of the solo experience, and I'd say just playing RPGs in general, part of that experience is figuring out how to deal with troubles. As a GM, you can present those to players, and they work through how to figure what the trouble is, what they want to do. When you're on both sides of the GM screen playing solo, sometimes you can feel like you're cheating, or you want to make sure that you are not cheating yourself out of cool adventures or whatever, because I know that he's going to do already. So tables and oracles like that are helpful. And this talks about the type of salvage, cargo, passengers, and this is also very helpful if you just want like a streamlined version, a quick version of how to make worlds in any sector. Then this has it. The main rule book for Hostile, actually a couple different ones I think, have processes for making your typical traveler, universal world profile. And then you have encounters, ship encounters, What will they do? Ship malfunctions. Everyone's bored. The movie's getting boring. Let's make a computer core failure, right? And then you roll your scenes and see who can help. And each of the campaigns has a checklist of what you would do, where you're going, the type of roles that crew would be making. Survey targets, the type of things that you might find, resources, campaigns or colony survival. That one's kind of interesting. Not one that I'm particularly interested in as far as like keeping track of profitability and stuff, but it is kind of cool to play the characters who have to deal with all this crap that happens. Marine squad, lots of bug hunts, stuff like that. Roughnecks, campaign troubleshooters. Those ones I've always found as interesting as well. You're some kind of steely-eyed corporate specialist sent out into the depths to figure out what the heck is going on LV 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It also has a version that goes back to the Zaibatsu, which is another semi-related setting that Zozer Game puts out as like a cyberpunk type of setting. And so you can also use that type of setting instead of necessarily going out into space. You go into the corporate wastelands at home on Earth. See more encounters, and here's some good info on some interesting Earth sites where the not the beanstalk, what do they call it? It's the tower. Pipeline, the Trans-Atmospheric Petroleum Pipeline, the TAP. It's basically a big pipeline going from orbit down to the surface, and it's kind of seems like something would be easy enough to blow up terrorist-wise, but it's kind of a beanstalk type structure, but used to transport oil, petroleum products, other minerals and stuff that come back from the ships. Anyway, that's Solo for the hostile setting, and I'll say that I really like it. I like the way that it's set up. As I've followed all the other books, I have, like with Explorers, the first crew that I decided to make was an Explorers crew. And so I will be using, when I make it, I'll be using extra info from here. But you don't need this info. If you just have hostile all on its own, you have enough to play any one of those settings, and you have enough to understand the theme and the campaign type that hostile is based around. But as a fanboy, I would suggest going out and getting some of the other stuff, because there's a lot of good info there. Okay. Anyway, I recommend it. I like it. I'll post links down in the bottom, and we'll switch over to some digital recording, and I'll show you the crew that I made just by way of an example of how to create a crew. All right, here is my crew. The one thing that I wish the hostile would have come with is a form fillable PDF. I didn't see one. I was not able to make the one there form fillable. I ended up using my Affinity publisher to turn this into a PDF. So if someone has it and there is a form fillable PDF, please comment below. So I decided to go ahead and make a explorer crew. I rolled up all these numbers, and they're actually honest numbers. When you're making a character, you end up you have a minimum score for a stat for a career. So there was once or twice I think I had to flip two numbers to get the score to match their minimum, but like this guy here, I rolled 4 9s in a row, kind of in different ways. I had 5s and 4s and not 7s and 2s, obviously, but 6s and 3s, all in a row, and then a 12. So he was, they all, most of them had pretty good rolls. I was kind of surprised, probably because I won't. This is just an example. But anyway, you pick your skills. I came up with the profiles from This Person Does Not Exist, which is like an AI generator tool. You just click on it and it generates these random faces. And they work pretty well. So Maxwell Carver, he's the captain. And along the way, as rolling everything else too, you have these professional relationships that you can determine. I think I showed that screen, or that page, I mean. And you could start them all that way, but to me, I was thinking more along the lines that it would be more interesting to let them develop once you start having those characters conflict. Or maybe just making one or two characters have something there. But that's the captain. This is my Mary Sue. Kind of a Mary Sue, but I thought she was. I rolled a 6 to start with, and then she had a bunch of high stats after that. So she's my happy pilot. That guy's the captain, pilot, navigator. There's our sensor operator and our engineer. Now I did roll the psych evaluation. For them all, just making them up. Now she was kind of funny because she's the doctor, and I actually had to switch her stats around because she's not smart. She's not smart. She's very socially awkward, and I thought, what kind of doctor would that be? And so I gave her more points in liaison, like, so she's not really a doctor. I mean, she is a doctor, but while she was practicing before she kind of scuttled off into the Explorer fleet, she was more of an administrator. So I thought that would be kind of an interesting trope breaker, because it's always the doctor who's a super smart person who's always figuring things out, all the alien spores and how to fight them and stuff. But this time we have someone who just is not skilled at doing that. So that will be interesting to see if anything comes of that. So those are the crew. This person here is one of the expedition leaders, or expedition people, the ones who go out and explore the planet. And of course, the crew positions can double up depending. Like the technician, she can work on the ship, and then once they land, she can help the crew down there. I must not have saved it, but I did roll a professional relationship for Owen, who is the senior. He's a senior scientist, and that puts him in charge of the expedition side of the mission, versus the captain, who's in charge of the ship. And when I rolled, he was lifelong friends. He was lifelong friends. Because I figured the one relationship I would start with would be the relationship between the two leaders, just to see. And I see I didn't write that one up here, but his was that he did not listen to the other guy. He ignores him. Well, since they're kind of lifelong friends, from both results. I turn that into the idea that he doesn't listen very well, or he ignores the other guy when he tells him something different or something he doesn't like to hear about how the mission goes. He ignores Owen. Maxwell ignores Owen when Owen tries to assert his own authority, especially if it's something that the captain doesn't like. And then Owen, he has to, since they are lifelong friends, or actual earnestly friends, he has to deal with his pal who he feels he doesn't give him the respect he deserves, and he just ignores him when he tells him something he doesn't want to hear. So I thought that would be kind of an interesting dynamic to play out in some character scenes somewhere down the way. But that's the crew. I had a little handy sheet there to add, to make your guys. So anyway, that's my review. I like it a lot. I hope that was helpful and maybe get some people to support Zozer Games. I think it's already silver on Drive for RPGs, so it's already received a good welcome. But I'll post links down. It'll be my affiliate link. So if you decide to purchase it after watching this review, they'll kick me a couple bucks back. It won't affect your price or anything. But as with all the Zozer games, like I said, I'm a fanboy. I love the quality. I love the setting. And I love Hostile Solo as well. And I will definitely start a campaign here shortly. Maybe I'll film it. I don't know. Filming is pretty cool. I like the filming, but sometimes it tends to get in the way of the game at times, if you know what I mean. But anyway, thanks for stopping by for another review, and happy gaming.